Good morning, dear students. Today we will be revising the chapter of recording of weather by marking the most important things in the chapter. Although we had finished the chapter previously, but today we'll mark the most important things in the chapter. The first and most important thing, that what are the elements of weather? So we had already marked them, that it is your temperature, humidity, pressure, rainfall, cloud cover, wind direction and speed. All of these come under the elements of weather, important to be marked. Then we go ahead with all the elements to understand in detail how they function. So when we are the most important are the three basic things for each element. Number one, what does it mean? That what do you mean by the term temperature? How is it measured? It is measured by the thermometer. What are the units to use to measure it? That is the Fahrenheit scale and the Celsius scale. And you also need to know here the difference between the boiling point and the freezing point of your Fahrenheit scale and the Celsius scale. So that's done out here. As we already know, we are not doing the calculation. I had already made you cross it out. The next element of weather is the humidity. Now, what is the meaning of the word humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, and humidity varies greatly from place to place. The next important element is humidity. Now, what is the meaning of the term humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. Simple enough. What are the characteristics of humidity? Humidity varies greatly from place to place and from time to time. Very simply, let us mark that also. Then we have the types of humidity, that is absolute and the relative humidity. The meaning of the word absolute humidity is the actual amount of water vapor present in the atmosphere. Simple. The measurement unit for the absolute humidity is grams per cubic meter. Then comes your relative humidity. What is the meaning of it? It is the ratio of the actual amount of water vapor present in the air at a given temperature and the total amount of water vapor the air can hold at that temperature. So here you have three very important terms while you are marking the definition. It is the ratio of the actual amount and the total amount of water vapor the air can hold at the given temperature. And the unit of measurement for relative humidity is percentage. So your unit here was grams per cubic meter for absolute humidity, and for your relative humidity it is percentage. The instrument used here to measure the humidity is called a hygrometer. A video was attached previously in the class to explain the functioning of the hygrometer. You can refer to that. Then we have the next element as the atmospheric pressure. What you mean, as I initially said, three most important things: meaning, functioning of the instrument, name of the instrument, and the unit of measurement. Four things are important for each element. Here we have atmospheric pressure is the pressure exerted by the weight of the atmosphere on the Earth's surface. So this becomes the meaning of the term atmospheric pressure. Now how is it measured? It is measured, the instrument used to measure is called the barometer. Now which barometer are we using? A mercury barometer here is being told to you. There are other types also. So here, how does a barometer tell you the atmospheric pressure? That's important to learn because you have to explain how the entire barometer is set up. That it consists of a long glass tube sealed at the upper end and open at the lower end. Then the lower end is inverted upside down in a container filled with mercury, and then when the pressure increases or decreases, the mercury also increases or decreases. All the labelings are important. It has been given to you in your uh, classwork also. Please make sure you learn the labelings. Maybe it comes as a diagram to draw, or in the Google form you will have to mark the labelings, or you have to make it some other way. The next important term is your dew. So we have already discussed the dew, that it is a form of condensation. Now, how is dew formed? Very important. Dew forms in winter when the temperature is very low but not below 0 degrees. Very, very important. Now, dew drops are beneficial for plants because they're providing the necessary amount of water to the plants automatically without any exterior water supply to them. So, then comes your Sorry, before we move ahead, we have understood that when is dew formed? It is formed in winter when the temperature is very low. But how is it formed? Moist air comes in contact with the cold surface near the ground, and the water vapor in the air changes to water. Now, this is seen as, now this was when it is formed. Now, this is your how it has been formed. Moving ahead with precipitation, that is your forms of rainfall, snowfall, and hail. Now, what is the term meaning hail? Now, very simple, frozen raindrops from ice pellets and fall as hail. Here we understand that it is the most destructive form of precipitation. Whereas we heard that dewdrops are beneficial, the hail is destructive. Why? Because it is providing a few drops of water to the plant, which is going to help the growth. But here, stone like frozen ice cubes are going to fall from the sky and they are going to damage the crops, right? um, Moving ahead and understanding the instrument used to measure precipitation, that is your rain gauge. We have already drawn the diagram of the rain gauge in our notebooks, so labeling should have been learnt by now. And how it is done, here we had marked a very important give reason question, that the hole in the funnel that leads down to the container is very small. Why? To keep the evaporation of the collected rainwater to a minimum. That was important to know. The next thing important here is your unit of measurement, that is your millimeters or centimeters. Very simple. But then we have here a paragraph which is telling you how the annual rainfall is recorded. That means the total of each month is added at the end of the year to find the annual rainfall. This calculation we'll be learning in class 8 also. If the meaning of the word snowfall is asked, then they are feathery flakes of frozen moisture falling on the earth's surface. Simple enough. When the cloud temperature and the ground temperature remains below the freezing point, then you have the snowfall. You can easily mark that. Now, clouds are very, very, very important to know because we have done them in too much of detail. Now, what are clouds? Clouds are formed when rising air cools because of expansion, and some of its water vapor forms tiny droplets of water and ice that float at different heights. Up till here, you mark it and learn it by how. Then you have the clouds differ in their form, shape, height, and movement. Those were the pointers I made you mark last time also. Then there are four major types. Very importantly, I made you all mark the pointers. At least 2 to 3 points per cloud should be learnt by heart. Here you already know stratus is being formed at lower levels. Your cirrus is being formed at very high levels. What is the most unique feature of all of it? Cumulus is your rain cloud, stratus is your rain cloud, light rains. Although it's not written here, but then stratus also causes light rains. Nimbus obviously is the rain forming clouds. Then you have the wind and its direction and speed. Here you need to mark all the things. What is the meaning of the wind? What are the types which are adjectives which are being given to calm and still, the opposite of being windy? How do we describe wind, the strong winds and violent storms? What is the basic instrument for the measurement? It's the wind vane. What is it measuring? The direction of the wind. Now, here, most important thing you need to know is how we are understanding the name, or how is the name given to a direction of the, sorry, the name of the wind, whether we call it the easterly wind or the westerly wind, how it has been named. The arrow of the wind vane always points in the direction from which the wind blows, and the wind is named accordingly. This diagram is very important for you to understand, so that if the wind is coming from here, it will be called easterly, and if the wind just circles around this arrow the other way around, then you'll have your westerlies if it is coming from here. So this is what you need to understand. And wind vanes are usually placed away from obstacles. Now that's an important give reason why, simply to avoid the wrong readings. Then comes your next instrument, that is your anemometer. What it is measuring? Your wind speed. Now, what are the units being used to measure the speed? You have meters per second or kilometers per second. Beaufort scale is rarely used now, but this scale, this is the scale, this is not the unit. So please understand that this is the unit of measurement for your wind speed. Now, this speed of wind can be estimated. That means all the day's speed is marked in the Beaufort scale, and then the effect of the wind at different speeds is taken out. That is what is the function of the Beaufort scale. This is not the unit as some of you have written it in your notebooks also. Then most important, we have the isoheights and isotherms. What do you mean by them? Simply the imaginary lines. Now please add the word imaginary before the lines, because these are not the lines which are there in the on the earth's surface. Exactly like your latitudes and longitude, these are also the imaginary lines made by joining points that show the same amount of rainfall received in a given period, are known as isoheights. So if you're adding the imaginary word here, you can cut these two words, that these lines. Then the similar thing for your isoheights, that is on the map, places experiencing the same temperature at a given time are connected with a imaginary line. Now this line is known as an isotherm. Simple enough. Now if I ask you what is the basic difference, if you see the map out here, it's clearly written. The numbers indicate rainfall in millimeters. This is the basic difference between the lines that you can see on the map. Although when I look into the map and I see numbers here also, numbers here also, how will I know which is isotherm, which is isoheight? So rainfall will be marked in millimeters and your temperature will be marked in degrees centigrade. Lastly, we have a few important terms again, that what do you mean by the term weather report? You can mark that. And then who are the people that has made it meteorologist? Now coming back to the definition which we had marked on this page, that is your page number 44, we had marked the definitions of meteorology and your meteorologist. Very important definitions. Please don't miss out on both of them. Then we get to know that who are the people who are basically affected and from where are you getting the information. Nowadays we are using the weather satellites and the radar systems. Now both of them are being used now for recording the weather, that is attaining the weather report. How do we receive it? Newspaper, radio, TV, internet, and the weather forecast are beneficial for the farmers, travelers, sailors, and aviators, the ones who are flying in the air, and the general public also, because if you don't know that it is going to rain tomorrow, you might not carry your umbrella and you might get wet and you fall sick. So exactly in the same manner, the farmers, if they get to know about the weather conditions, they can look after the crops properly and make prior arrangements for the safety. Travelers, obviously, if you are not going to travel according to the weather, you'll not be carrying your umbrella, or you might not be carrying your woolens if you don't know if it's suddenly going to get chilly or windy, and you might be planning a evening out or a picnic and then it suddenly rains. Then what happens? You're going to get stuck up and your entire trip will be a waste. Sailors and aviators and fishermen, all of these are too much influenced by the weather, daily weather forecast specifically. The sailors and the fishermen can actually get caught into the ocean and the high tide and waves and might lose their lives, or the ships, and they might not even get the fish or the catch for the day. And simply for the aviators, flying is a very, very dangerous job, obviously, as it is. And you never know what type of winds you might face. So you need to be acquainted with every second's forecast specifically while flying in the air. Apart from that, everyday life also, even the entire public is being affected. So we need to know in general how it's going to affect. I'm not going into the detail because that's a very application based question that you should already have understood, that how these elements are influencing your life in general. Thank you, children.